Welcome, everybody. Daylight Protocol. I'm just waiting for the AMA to start. As soon as it starts, we will play everything here.
Hi guys, are we live? Hello?
Hey.
Okay, all right.
Good morning, Neil.
Morning, Red. How you doing?
Morning, friends.
All right. Can anybody, if everybody can hear the audio
Good
perfect,
morning,
just let me know in the
everybody.
comments. I just want to make sure everything's running smooth. Of course, it's going to take a while for everybody to jump in, so.
Okay, Florida.
Just doing a mic check on my end. Can you guys hear me?
Tidsley.
Yes, sir.
Rad.
Open mic.
All right.
Okay.
Just confirm we are working on my end. I can hear it through my phone, so we're good. Okay. Man, is it early?
Should be better than the last round.
There's Heather. There's 28, 29 others. So there's people in this Discord room.
Of course. We're running on Greek time. Not my Greek time. Greek's always early. Their Greek time.
It certainly is.
Yep, we can hear you.
Nothing's going on yet. Okay. All right. Discord.
Yeah, Cosmo, can you hear us?
Sound like general.
Doesn't sound like it. Freedom, your mic is crisp, though. You sound good. Thanks, buddy. I got a new mic a little while ago. Gotta crank these things up, you know?
Okay, announcements. Let's put it at 11 o'clock. Okay.
Looks like I muted Cosmo for right now.
All right. Apollo Undisputed Well Story.
I'll unmute it in a minute.
I can still hear
Okay.
Cosmo.
You can still hear Cosmo now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, so that's just my own.
Okay.
All right.
Not a global mute, just a personal one.
Yeah, looks like it. So
Hello, everybody.
Morning, Ted.
Morning. I was gonna put my camera on, but it turns out I can't put it on if the chat has more than 25 people. So that's rather unfortunate. But you know, let's give it some more time for a few more people to join. I've actually dropped the updated light paper link, everybody. So if you want to read about Apollo, just head over to announcements. And you know, we fully finished revising the documentation and everything, and then we can host sort of a very interactive open mic over here. But if you guys prefer, you know, to do a video amongst the hosts, just let me know, and then we can move everybody to the horizon.
So if you guys listen to Ted, if you go to announcements, there's an updated white paper. He's going to drop Apollo bombs today, so.
So I think, you know, I think what's coming out today is going to excite a lot of people. For those of you that have tested, played around with the DApp, I'm pretty sure the results are pretty impressive. We've gotten amazing feedback from a lot of people on how beautiful it looks, how interactive it is. It has an actual chart, so you can actually see the price rise every time, as well as the current price, etc. And to clarify for everybody once again, Apollo is not made available on the DEX, but its own exclusive dashboard, because it does not utilize liquidity pools, right? So it does not stay on the AMM, AMM DEX. Instead, it utilizes 100% collateralized assets, and after the first transaction, over 100% collateralized assets to the price of 1, which means that it enables a price rise with every single transaction. This is really interesting. I'm looking forward, really excited to see what sort of volume and price that we can actually get onto today. Because I think a lot of people really have been waiting for this moment, for this exact, launch that eventually feeds back into the original Daylight token. So we haven't forgotten about the Daylight token. And then on stage, I have with me today, I believe, Freedom, Rad Dad, Neil, as well as Greek DeFi Guru, who will be mediating, who will be also talking in depth about Project Daylight, as well as what the future holds in store for us. Let's give it maybe 5 more minutes, guys, for everybody to join.
Wish I could have slept. No, I'm kidding. 5 more minutes. Yeah, they always make us wait 5 more minutes for the news. It's never, here's the news, here's the news. Give us the news. So while we're waiting, let's see who we got with us. We got Daniel Prado, first in the house. He probably hasn't gone to bed yet. Texas FPF, yo, what up? El Neni is second. Got Crypto Pride in the house. Crypto Freedom. Yeah, should be a good one. Apollo seems like a no-brainer. Ever increasing stable backed asset cannot go down in price. Ted is a genius. Samantha's here watching. So many peeps I recognize already in the comments. And yours truly, right here. The Greek. Oh, Milky, it's like a social club in here. Some cool people just hanging out. Yes. Dussel Tech, hey everyone. Look at that Greek, yeah. Way too early for the Greek. Ted was talking about me talking. I don't know how that's going to affect the audio of me doing what I'm doing here. So we'll have to determine that if I'm even able to. It might script the audio. Bear Cub, yes. Crypto Easy, 19th.
Is that?
I'm gonna
If you
butcher
can
the
find whose
pronunciation,
mic that
but
is, I'm gonna mute them.
I'll do it for you. I got it.
All right, guys, so let's, jump right into it. This is going to be a very, I would say a briefer AMA, so it's not going to be an hour long, so that I have, a few moments to deploy the Apollo token as well and start its trading before releasing the link to everybody. I just want to come in and give out a few very interesting updates on everything Daylight, basically. So, there's a lot of things that have been happening behind the scenes. We've been working, talking with different projects as well on various synergies and how Apollo token can not only benefit us, but then everyone as an ecosystem, everyone within the ecosystem. On top of that, I want to tell you guys that first off, we've got the space seed round that is coming up. So there's a lot of people that have already been collected and shortlisted for the space seed round itself that can, participate in its seed round at price $1, and then it launches at $2. So it's a very interesting, very lucrative opportunity with a hard cap of only $200,000. For those that were in the daylight seed round and saw how fast it sold out, we can probably expect something similar in terms of momentum for this seed as well. Space DeFi is an ecosystem that basically utilizes grid trading bots, and these are legitimate, you know, transparent bots that you can actually see profits come in and are reinvested back into the ecosystem. So it's completely external revenue. And I'm not going to make a comparison, but I've seen a lot of other projects, let's say Optimus, Stable Fund, and a lot of people have lost money in certain projects where they have promised that we're using these trading bots in order to generate these profits and these sustainable yields for you. Um, and then what happens is that once it's no longer sustainable because there's no on-chain transparency about these trading bots or these trade profits, things start to decline, right? And with Space, it does not promise you a 1% return per day or anything like that. It rather gives you an APY or an added value based on its actual profits that are transparent on chain. That's something I really admire about Space DeFi and how it's going to turn out to be. I think it's very interesting because it's not only proprietary tech that generates protocol owned revenue for the project itself, but also for its users and ecosystem stakeholders. Now, another thing that we're going to be rolling out soon is we're going to be helping with the pre-sale of another project, and this is a project that's run by one of our DAO members, and is sort of a Dogecoin fork that has very high potential and some NFT mint utilities, right? So that's going to be a very, very small, low market cap, but high growth project. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to convince the guy to eventually go cross chain on Vulcan once it's out, so that we can enable, exposure to a larger audience and also drive some pretty substantial amount of volume towards the Vulcan ecosystem itself. So that's currently in talks. The project is called Thin Mints, THNM, and we're currently discussing ways to work around it, as well as how we can capitalize on this opportunity and offer it to Project Daylight's ecosystem stakeholders. And now the third thing that I wanted to introduce was that we're currently talking to Cannabis Chain, which is a project, a cannabis oriented project that's going to be on BNB chain, and then that's probably going to go on Apollo Launchpad as well. That's a very, very small micro cap project. It's going to be launching at about $300,000 market cap, which is incredibly, getting ready for that bull run, for that rise up. And that's going to be another lucrative opportunity that we're going to be offering to the Daylight ecosystem. And then once again, what happens as usual is that, and this is something that's very intrinsic, a lot of people sort of miss out or don't understand on, is that once these projects launch on the Daylight Launchpad, a portion of that revenue generated from these projects launching is fed back into the Daylight ecosystem, meaning it goes towards Apollo, it goes towards Daylight, and people that are earning tons of money into Daylight can actually sell down their tokens, profit, reinvest in the next project, and keep doing this over time, because this is actually a sustainable business model that we have. Now, another thing to definitely understand is that this bolsters as well as fortifies the actual value of the Daylight token, the Daylight ecosystem, Apollo, etc. A lot of factors to be considered. And then once they're sold down, because Daylight is a very unique token that is able to sell itself down for rewards in the liquidity pool. The rewards are then recycled back, and that's how you keep earning in perpetuity. And that's something that's very interesting. I feel a lot of people have overlooked about this project in particular, because everything is, self-sustaining. We're not taking, we're not collecting fees from BUSD, for instance. We're not, collecting people's money that are coming into the project to give out to old people in the project, and therefore it is not Ponzinomics that define us, but rather sustainability, one of the issues that is constantly being combated in the DeFi space, and this is how we're addressing it. So on to greater things, and probably what everybody's here all about, the Apollo token. So I do want to explain once again how the Apollo token works, and then basically talk about how it's undisputed wealth storage for anyone within Project Daylight itself, right? So Apollo token is created as sort of a second layer for BUSD, if you can call it that, and enables you to basically store your BUSD in an asset that is ever appreciating over time, right? So Apollo is defined as the world's first true wealth generation storage, consisting of an ever appreciating stable asset that cannot go down in price. A lot of people have made comparisons that are similar to MDB Plus, PUSD, XUSD, etc. But then one thing interesting and different about Apollo is that the price rise factor is exponentially higher compared to these other tokens, right? These other tokens are taking in like approximately 0.2, 0.3% tax in order to enable this price rise factor that they have. And then some of them have a max wallet factored into it, while we don't. We enable a 3% price rise, which is incredible. It's 10 times, growth of the other tokens out there, and then even higher on cells, etc. And these rising values are cumulative of previous transactions. So the fund allocation for these taxes, they're 8% in, out, transfer, 3% goes to price rise, 1% goes to buying back and burning daylight, and then the remainder 4% becomes a protocol reserve to be used in the future. Right now, what happens when you buy the token is that when Apollo tokens are produced or minted, new tokens are added to the supply, dependent on how much BUSD you've put in as collateral. And because of that, the supply rises at a somewhat lower pace than the current value of the backing, allowing for the price appreciation, because the ratio between the backed BUSD as well as the Apollo supply continues to shift. Same goes for cells, but an exponential value. And you can find more details about this in the updated light paper that I have released. Now, talking a lot about how this is going to basically, benefit a lot of investors is that you'll be able to store your wealth in something that has zero minimum downside risk. It's literally going up over time, all the time. And what happens is that you have the opportunity to keep your profits in something that's truly sustainable, that never goes down in value. And when you feel like removing it, you can exit the Apollo token and then increase the price at the same time. This way, it makes it an ever appreciating asset where people are coming in and going out with zero downside risk, but always with the profit involved. And that's why it's so damn intrinsic, because even though you've got 8% in tax, what happens over there is that 3% of that goes towards a price rise. So you're already 5% left to break even, right? So if someone sells because the price rises more on an exponential curve, then you're even closer to your goal of breaking even. And then with a few more transactions in the same volume of yours, you have already considered yourself break even, because you have a value that's higher than you put in. And this is how Apollo continues to be not only an undisputed wealth storage, but also an opportunity for other projects to capitalize on, because once Apollo is paired into a liquidity pool with another project, you can consider that if Apollo goes up 100% in price, so does that project's token, right? And if they're selling down their token in order to, cash out to BUSD, that means they're also selling Apollo, which allows for a greater and even greater price rise for Apollo every single time it is transacted. It's a potential, scarcity token that will eventually become scarce. It's inevitable compared to its market cap that is only going up. So this is something really, really interesting to consider before getting into the Apollo token. Now, again, I do have to be transparent with everyone and say there's an 8% in tax, 8% out tax. And, a lot of people, as long as there is volume transacted on external revenues, as long as there is volume transacted on Apollo itself, because it's a free market, you will be able to 100%, you know, make a profit out of this token. Now, I'm not giving financial advice or anything, but what the opportunity that I have presented to not only the DAO, but entire Daylight ecosystem as well as their own team members is that you are able to get into the Apollo token really, really early before we are pushing this out as a utility to other projects on other chains. And then it's something that can easily be ported over and possibly bridged to a new chain as well, because we're buying and minting at the same time. And when we sell, we burn the token. So, again, wants to remind everyone, the Apollo token does go live for the DAO in exactly 38 minutes, and then 1 hour and 38 minutes, it goes live to the general public. So for those that are, worried that is the DAO going to buy too much or anything like that, I can right away tell you that there's literally only 2 or 3 people from the DAO in here. Everyone else is asleep. So fear not, they're going to be late. Or they're going to be at the same time as you. A lot of them are waking up. A lot of them are going to bed. And then, it's going to be a very, very fair launch and an even market for everybody. So I'll let, the rest of the people that have joined me up on stage today, Raddad, Greek DeFi Guru, Neil, Freedom, talk and ask questions, as well as you guys. So please put your questions in AMA questions, and I'll be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Hey, Ted, this is Freedom. One thing I was wondering, so obviously with Apollo, you're going to have that be available to other projects to use, like for LP, like kind of LP type of things, I guess?
Yeah, so if you're basically pairing, LPs with Apollo, what it ensures is that every time someone is trying to buy your token, let's say Daylight is paired exclusively with Apollo,
Yeah.
every time someone is trying to buy Daylight, they're going to have to convert their BUSD to Apollo first, raising the price of Apollo, and then raising the price of the token that is paired with Apollo at the same time, right? And this is going to be insane, because imagine if there's 5 projects that are buying tokens using Apollo or paired with Apollo in a liquidity pool. Everyone is buying and selling Apollo in order to get paired, in order to buy or sell the other token. Therefore, that makes it, an interesting and a very exclusive opportunity for projects to get in and have their protocol's price raised by other protocols' volume at the same time. And that's how we basically put ecosystems together under an umbrella, under a united front, to ensure that everyone is basically gaining some sort of value out of this token as well as their native tokens.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. And then somebody I think just asked, obviously we'll have a Apollo Daylight pairing then, right?
That's 100% correct, but we're only going to deploy this pair. So something very interesting and an arbitrage opportunity that a lot of people have been asking about is that we're going to create a Daylight Apollo farm that actually has a deposit tax on it that goes back to protocol owned liquidity. But then it's going to give the highest rewards out of all the farms for Daylight tokens. Now, what happens over here is that, we're going to pair Apollo with Daylight 1-to-1. So let's say Apollo's current price is 1.2, hypothetically. That means Daylight's price is going to be 1.2 BUSD within that pool itself. So what happens is that you can instantly buy from the Daylight BUSD pool and sell down to the Apollo pool. And because it is protocol owned liquidity because of taxes, you'd basically be selling down, getting Apollo, selling Apollo to get BUSD, increasing the price of Daylight, and increasing the price of Apollo. So this basically, is some sort of magic that we've created where even if you're selling down into Apollo and reducing the ratio of Apollo to Daylight in value, you're still increasing the price of not only Apollo, but at the same time, the price of Daylight. And that's something that's truly phenomenal that will bolster the ecosystem, provide an arbitrage opportunity within the ecosystem itself without having you to put in, additional funds or do any sort of complex trading or even wait for rewards to come out. It's an instantaneous arbitrage opportunity that you can take advantage of, and it helps to increase the daylight price at a very, very great momentum.
Awesome. And then regarding the Apollo launchpad when it's up, will the Apollo token be specifically connected with that in any way? Or would it just be that perhaps the projects that launch end up using the Apollo token for LP?
Well, the Apollo token is not, as we made it before, Daylight gives you access to the launchpad because Apollo launchpad is a Daylight product.
Yeah.
And in the end, if people want to use the Apollo token as an LP or not is entirely up to them. We would definitely recommend it, and we would definitely sort of give them an incentive for it, perhaps, shoveling out some of the costs of maybe half the LP from our side or doing something similar in that regard in order to help them financially, but also enable a successful launch for them. Because what happens is that in the end, when they're transacting via the Apollo token, it's constantly increasing the price of not only Apollo, but at the same time Daylight, right? So all of it feeds back into the Daylight ecosystem. Now, one thing that I do want a lot of people to understand is that Daylight is a project that was created with no intended, get rich quick for the project founders or for the project team itself. Unlike a lot of other projects that I see, have heavy taxes that go directly to the protocol, have tokens being sold from the protocol that sort of damage investors in a way. And this is something that we wanted to completely avoid and create something that is, very decentralized and actually walks within the realm of DeFi, because there is no external factor that is manipulated constantly to make the team generate more revenue on the expense of the users.
Nice. Let's take a look and see if there's any AMA questions here. Is anybody else, Neil, are you checking that out?
Yeah, I had a couple written down from earlier.
All right.
Where did I put them? Oh, here we go. Yeah, there were a couple quicker questions earlier. Someone had expressed some slight concerns. They've seen a lot of ecosystems in the past sort of launch their main token, which I guess is sort of what we're calling Daylight for this ecosystem. And they're just curious that is DayL going to stay as the main focus going forward? They don't want it to get lost in all of, the things that you're bringing to the table.
100%. Daylight is the main focus, and therefore we have created Apollo to not only supplement, but also complement the original Daylight token. That's the whole purpose of Apollo, is to provide people with something that's risk, has very low minimum downside risk, but at the same time, constantly feeds back into the benefits of original Daylight holders.
Perfect. You heard it here. That helps
No, that
Daylight
makes perfect
token.
sense. That's sort of what I had sort of unofficially spoken to him about. And then another question was a bit more of a hopium, I think, was when is Daylight token going to see $1 million volume per day?
So, I mean, we're looking at a bull market where even massive tokens like, a lot of tokens that are specifically on the BNB chain are seeing lower volume. If we go to Dex Screener right now and we look at some of the top launches, basically right now Daylight is doing approximately 10K in volume, 20K in volume. Sometimes it entirely depends on the feel of the day itself. But if we look at some of the massive tokens that have launched that were super overhyped, we're looking at Angel Dust, for example, that did this massive pre-sale on Pink Sale, and that token is down by literally 1 or 2 decimals from its launch. People are still hyped about it for some reason, but then at the same time, it's doing only about 6,000 volume a day, right? Now, if we look at something like Seifu, which is known for its massive volume during the bull run, it's doing approximately $15,000 in volume per day, right? So Daylight is doing pretty okay compared to a lot of other tokens. Daylight is, possibly we can see 5 to 6 figures volume, same as the first few weeks of launch in the next bull run or sometime like that. But the point of Daylight right now is it's supposed to be a bear killer with a price that is depreciating lesser, much lesser than a lot of other tokens in comparison, but at the same time paying out phenomenal amounts of rewards, right? So for those in the long farm that can attest to how much rewards they're getting, or in the MDB farm, prove me wrong, but a lot of people have been reporting around 0.5 to up to 2% per day return on investment.
He is not joking. I'm in the long farm. It's paying me.
This is Freedom here again. I'll just mention that I've been in the I got in the long farm a little bit late. Like I didn't get in right away, so I probably missed some of the highest percentage. But I did get in the long farm. That's like farming Daylight with BUSD, and then I got in the MDB Plus, which is like a 3-month farm with Daylight and MDB Plus. And I'm pretty amazed, honestly. Like just I don't know the exact percentage, whether it's 1% or something, but it's like it's a beautiful thing, kind of claiming that Daylight every day and seeing it go in my wallet, right? And obviously, right now our price is, a little is down from launch, but with the fact that the ecosystem hasn't really kicked into gear yet, it's to me it's a pretty nice thing. So for anybody that's not aware of those, I would definitely get in the Discord and kind of ask a little bit more and figure that out, because these Daylight farms are phenomenal, and now it looks like we'll have an Apollo one as well, right? So
yeah, one thing that I did want to, specifically add into that is that a lot of people do complain about, the price going down. It's currently half of what it was pre-sale price. And I'm not scared to come out and say and admit that, of course there have been a lot of sellers, but there are reasons why this happened, and you have to understand the underlying reasons as well, right? So number one is that not only have we paid out an insane amount of rewards, which is approximately $220,000 to $230,000 worth of Daylight that people have actually sold down into the LP, recycled, raised the floor price, raised, the reward distribution wallet once more. But we've also gone up at an all-time high that a lot of people could have sold at if they wanted to. And then another thing to also consider is that price movement from now is going to be much slower than before in terms of sells, specifically because our liquidity is covering approximately 30 to 40% of the actual market cap, right? So there's no other project out there that I've heard of that is deflationary, that's paying amounts, crazy amount of rewards at this rate without minting new tokens into the supply, and at the same time keeping a very stable price action that is sort of linear in decline or increase like we are doing. So I think that's something, that's a great accomplishment, and that's something to really be proud of for not only the team, but also a lot of the Daylight holders and Daylight maxis. And what I encourage everybody to do is to tell people about how phenomenal this is, because it can really be life-changing. I've, spoken to a lot of people saying, Daylight itself in the first 2-3 weeks has changed my life, has tripled my income, has, given me so much amount of rewards that I'm ready to buy Christmas presents for my family. And a lot of success stories that have come to me in private, a lot of success stories that have been transparent in the Discord as well. People talking good things about the project, even after we were constantly told that, this model is not going to work. This is something different. People are into rebase models or BNB miners, etc., etc. I think the market for sustainability is inevitable. We are here to pioneer it. We're here to make a big difference in DeFi by showing people how fruitful true intrinsic value and true wealth generation can be.
Hey Ted, it's Red. There's a question in the AMAs. They're asking if you're going to do any more buybacks or burns of the Daylight token.
Yeah, so we were doing buybacks and burns of up to about, until at least about 2 or 3 weeks ago. This has been addressed several times in the Discord, within the Telegram, whatever it is. The problem with doing buybacks and burns right now at such a high liquidity and low market cap is that we'd essentially be deleting money and moving the price by a few cents. So I'll give you an example. Right now, liquidity, let's say even just for the Daylight BUSD pool, is approximately 250,000. If we were to do a buyback of $25,000, that would move the price by actually just about 10 cents, 10 to 12 cents if you consider the taxes, which would in essence be deleting money for us, because that money could actually be used towards building new utilities, marketing the launch for new projects that would automatically feed back to the Daylight token because of the revenues generated, right? So that's something that we have to take into consideration from a very private company standpoint as to whether or not we're going to utilize this money to essentially delete it or develop new utilities that we can offset the cost of doing buybacks and burns in the future, right? So but I do, one thing that I do expect that will happen within the next few weeks is that once we see the Apollo price rising, and people might be early withdrawing from the Daylight BUSD farms. So once they take out their liquidity to put into maybe the Apollo Daylight farm, or to do bonding, then we can utilize that low liquidity for buybacks and burns to exponentially increase the price.
It's fair comment. I think people don't necessarily realize the importance of liquidity and how it actually plays into the price of the token. I mean, I think people look at a shit coin that has next to no liquidity, but then, a 0.1 BNB buy will moon the chart. Everybody gets super hyped, but then as soon as you sell, it tanks. I think, especially in sort of long-term sustainable DeFi protocols, the thicker your liquidity, the better off you're going to be in the end, even if it doesn't pump the chart in either direction as you go. Because I see DeFi Greek DeFi guy nodding there, because I think he's seen sentiment decline in chats where price goes down because liquidity was too thin. So important to keep that in mind. Now,
Exactly.
my question: do you see people arbitraging between the two tokens, or is there going to be, or do you kind of foresee that the price appreciation of Apollo will be that much slower that there isn't an opportunity to sort of swing trade back and forth between Apollo and Daylight?
So, like I said before, we're going to create an Apollo Daylight farm that is paired 1-to-1. And let's say that the price of Daylight in the BUSD pool is 0.4 and the current price of Apollo is 1.2, right? So this means that the price of Daylight within the Apollo pool is going to be approximately $1.2. And what happens over there is that you can instantaneously buy in the BUSD pool for 0.4 and sell it for a 3x, not considering the 20% tax in the Apollo pool, instantly making an arbitrage profit, instantly pumping the price in the BUSD pool. And there will be a massive opportunity for people to do this back and forth because of the price differences between various liquidity pools, right? So this is something that we've created within the ecosystem itself. And then what happens is that once you have swing trade and you've bought Daylight with BUSD for 0.4, you sell it for one Apollo, which is maybe $1.2 at the time. You're once again selling the Apollo to get your BUSD to make a profit. And this will not only increase the price of Apollo because you're selling Apollo, but it also increases the price of Daylight because there's a tax from Apollo that sells down, buys back, and burns Daylight, and then increases the entire ecosystem's price as a whole, right? So that is something very, very interesting to consider. And, it's going to be deeper diving into DeFi that is much more complex. But if people are able to grab this opportunity instantaneously, we can see the price actually moon within even the bear market. The bear market, I feel, is an illusion that stops a lot of people from investing because they're scared of global sentiments, etc. But then if you can find something that's truly rewarding, truly intrinsic, and has a powerful community like this one, spreading the word about it, constantly supporting it, then there is definitely an opportunity to, make a lot of profits from it.
No, great point. I think people are pretty desperate right now to invest in something that isn't just going to rug. I mean, we've seen a lot of pretty high profile rugs in the last couple of weeks, and everyone's super jittery in terms of investment. But I think the teams out there that are building right now are the ones that will be here for the long term. I don't think there's any risk of that sort of activity in this group. I've, met you personally, not in person, but, one-to-one, and I trust you completely. So I think you're in good hands here, Daylight folk. It's this team's here to stay.
I feel, and this is something that I've constantly expressed with a lot of people. I feel a lot of people cannot take accountability. And there's a lot of excuses, right? There's, development is slow. There's an open market, whatever. We can't do this. We've done Ponzonomics in bear market. But nothing has stopped you from creating something truly sustainable if you can actually think it out, implement it, execute on it. That's what Team Daylight is here to do. We're here to stay. We've shown our faces to the world. We don't really care, even though we're a private company. We're like, this is us. This is what we're building. There is a risk involved. 100% there is a risk involved in every single investment in DeFi and cryptocurrency and stocks, even in property or, appreciating assets anywhere in the world. Every single investment is a risk because it is a storage of money that has volatility attached to it, right? But one thing we're not going to do is we're not going to, suddenly up and close shop because we feel, we can no longer mentally handle this project or anything, man. I'm driven as fuck to give back, to DeFi the best that is possible in the realm because I have, innovative ideas. My team has innovative ideas. We're constantly reaching out to new projects on our own. We're constantly talking with new people within our networks in order to get them, implemented into a more sustainable environment that not only helps the entire DeFi ecosystem, brings new investments that are actually safely vetted to DeFi, but also, enabling everyone within this ecosystem to make a profit.
Driven as fuck. I love it.
Hey, Ted, quick question. I've got a couple of different people asking me where they can buy Apollo once it's live. I didn't know.
So
if the
I'll
link
be
had been
dropping.
released.
Yeah, I'll be dropping the link on the dot in 15 minutes for the DAO. And then I'll be dropping the link in 1 hour, 15 minutes in the announcements channels. Just keep your eyes peeled on the announcements channel, guys, so that, you're all going to be able to buy Apollo. And I have to tell you right away that once Apollo starts pumping, so does Daylight, even if it's not paired in the liquidity pools, because a portion of the taxes actually sells down Apollo, increases the price of Apollo, uses the BUSD collateral that is received from there to buy back and burn Daylight. So it's going to be very interesting. And it's all done in the DEX. So there's actual backing money that goes back into the floor price, et cetera, right? Now, one more thing to consider is that, we're also creating sort of a lending protocol in the works, in ideation for Apollo itself, where you'll be able to use your Apollo as collateral and borrow BUSD with a fixed interest rate, right? Now, what this does is it's going to not only enable you to, utilize this BUSD for other investments, flip them instantaneously, make a profit, and then pay back the interest that is owed to Apollo. But at the same time, it's going to enable people to actually be able to, use something without, or sort of take out a loan from their token without actually any approval. So it's fully on chain, it's fully decentralized. It's something incredible that we've come up with, and I look forward to sharing more details once everything is refined with everyone.
Yeah, so basically we got to get our BUSD ready then, right, Ted? For the Apollo.
Well, if you're buying Apollo, the only way to do it is BUSD because that is
Right.
the backing. That's the token that backs Apollo. So Apollo, once again, for everyone, can literally never go down in price. It's designed to not do so. It's designed that it can literally never lose value, and it will stay true to its promise because the smart contract is on chain, it's written, it's executed, and it is fully tried and tested.
Nice. I did want to just mention to you, Ted, that Greek he's live streaming this, so he won't be able to talk during it, but he's live streaming it on YouTube and handling lots of comments there as well. So he's helping you out too.
For sure, for sure. I would encourage everyone who's watching Greek's video has questions after the AMA to come into the Discord, to discord.gg/Project Daylight, to ask any questions that are still pending. Our team is going to be here active. You know, we've been, you know, we do apologize again that we delayed the Apollo launch by 5 or 6 days. We had to work out some front end issues. I've got these massive dark circles under my eyes, man. But you know, there's no more delays. We're actually going to launch today. Everything is ready. Everything is on time. So that is the purpose. That is our mission, which is execute, deliver, innovate, and bring more to Project Daylight and its ecosystem.
Awesome. Any more questions, anybody? Let's see.
It's gonna be a long 13 minutes waiting for that link.
Well, and just so everybody knows as well, Ted did drop an updated light paper for Daylight Protocol, which has some information for Apollo on it as well. So, and also, Ted, it does have some. Does it have updated Daylight information as well?
It indeed has updated Daylight information and also some information pertaining to the actual farms and pools ROI per day and its max payouts that are issued by the smart contract. So it does have a max payout with individuals in the pool. But then until dilution point, then the rewards will start to decline a little bit. But anyways, apart from that, we are currently refining some documentation as well as pitch decks, so partner decks, client-facing decks that will be used exclusively for Apollo token for a lot of the launchpad raises. So a lot of this will be sent out to external partners as well as a lot of people that are wanting to launch their projects on a more legitimate launchpad that gives them some sort of exposure. One thing that I have, stressed on constantly is that the Apollo launchpad is different. It's multifaceted. It enables different investment bodies like the Apollo DAO and other DAOs to invest exclusively in projects that are going onto the launchpad, as opposed to perhaps Pink Sail or Gempad that will literally do nothing for you in terms of exposure, nothing for you at all in terms of getting your development right, getting advisory, getting the right people to look at your contracts, your project, as well as constructive feedback.
Yeah, and then Ted, you guys are working on a website update too. Is that right?
Correct. So there will be a website update for Project Daylight itself. There will be a website update for Apollo and its launchpad. And, for the first 1 or 2 launches, we're going to be doing a custom dashboard. So not part of the launchpad itself, but sort of a custom solution for our partners to raise their funds and also contribute to the Daylight ecosystem. But then apart from that, we are constantly working on the back end onto the launchpad. It will release shortly on the Vulcan blockchain, approximately 1 week after mainnet goes live, so that we have some time to do some user acceptance testing as well and run some test raises, etc. So that's all going to be taken into consideration as we will be rolling things out. So I'm going to hold more or less weekly or bi-weekly AMAs, at least at minimum, to get some updates out to the community. I think especially after today's launch, everybody will be very, very excited about how Apollo is doing and how, Daylight is going to look like in the future.
Somebody was just asking CMC listing. Have you been looking at that at all? CoinMarketCap listing, Ted?
Yeah, we looked at a few, listing avenues, and CoinMarketCap is charging us around $15,000 dollars to get listed. So that's something that's really bothering us. I feel personally, in my experience, I feel listing on CoinMarketCap or CoinGecko doesn't actually give the project any sort of benefit apart from being listed on a DeFi directory, because in the end you still have to search for the token within your own capacity, and then that what happens is that if we pay for something of a trending service, etc., it's going to basically bleed us money, and then because of the lack of understanding in the DeFi space itself, there is a possibility that this will not actually be advantageous to us.
Yeah, I've seen so many projects that they make it this big thing to get on CoinMarketCap or one of these things, and most of the people that want that so bad. Not everybody, obviously, because it's exposure, but it's this pump and dump kind of thing. I've actually seen it hurt like more projects that I'm in probably than help. So I do like the fact that it seems to me like Daylight is building this solid foundation, and as you end up having all these projects launching, you're going to kind of solidly build the knowledge of what Daylight is, as opposed to this, oh, it's going up, I'm going to buy in, oh, now I'm going to sell because it's up, right? It's like, versus getting some good investors that are actually looking for true wealth over the coming years and everything. Any thoughts on that?
100%. I think the problem, or I would say a lot of things that projects overlook, is building solid foundations before executing on larger goals, right? I don't mind getting us listed on CoinGecko, CMC, and we have discussed a lot internally with the team itself. Now, that's one of our exterior goals in the very long term, because right now what we need to focus on is building some sort of foundational momentum towards getting some tokens listed on our DEX. The first step would be to list the Orion DEX on CoinGecko, CoinMarketCap, and then from there we can list our token pairs on the Orion DEX on the relevant DeFi directories as well, right? So there's a step that we have to move towards, getting these things accomplished. And it would not be wise for us to basically list our PCS pool, because that's not where you want people to buy, right? Or sell. The PCS pool, as I explained before, is exclusively used for the sell burn function for Daylight. It is protocol owned liquidity, which means we've put a substantial amount of money in reserves there since the start that has been depleted because people are using that liquidity pool to buy and sell. And what happens is that we want to continue to basically build up that pool so that it sell burns the token within the liquidity pool and then arbitrages it back on Orion DEX, increasing the price of Daylight constantly, right? As a function, that is integrated within the Aurora, which is the working of our tokenomics.
Hey, Ted, we do have a question in the AMA question section there. Some Duke Vandert asks, what % of each Apollo buy goes to Daylight? And furthermore, on the Launchpad earnings side, what % goes to Daylight?
Yeah, so 1% of the Apollo buy or sell goes to buying back and burning Daylight on the DEX, and Launchpad earnings at minimum 25% goes back. So it's still yet to be decided whether we're going to directly shove those assets directly into the BUSD backing, which is going to be actually phenomenal because of any arbitrage opportunity that may present itself into the future, or we might actually use it to buy back and burn Daylight. So those are some very interesting things that we have to look at individually, because we have to factor in how much this affects the price rise of the Daylight token. How can it be bolstered accordingly? How can we deepen liquidity? How can we thin it at strategic times, etc. Right? So, but 25% minimum of Launchpad earnings goes back to Daylight somehow.
That sounds great. I'll follow up with my own question just around the Launchpad side of things. What's your vetting process for a project? Because I mean, we've seen dramatic difference in quality between the projects that are launching these days. So how are you making sure that only solid projects end up on the launch pad?
Yeah, so what we're doing is we're first reviewing their tokenomics, their viability plans, their operational plans internally as a team itself. So we have Anthony, who's I don't know if he's awake yet or not. We have Roshan, we have Nadia. You know, basically we take a look at these projects together. We sort of talk to them. We get on a video call with them if it's possible. We sort of feel them out first, and we consider, you know, does it pass our first criteria? And then if it does feel like a project that we're comfortable helping out, and you know, we understand that the founders have good intentions, we're going to definitely bring it to the DAO. And we have our council members that, you know, basically look at these projects and sort of vet them even more. And then we ultimately decide whether it's something that we're going to invest in first ourselves. We're going to support them. And if we do decide that, for example, Space DeFi is something that I'm personally going to invest in the seed round, we then present it to Project Daylight and get them launched and give them the support they need on the Apollo launchpad.
Perfect. Thanks, man.
So guys, I'm sorry to disappoint everyone. I think there's a lot of people that are just joining the AMA as well, but I've got to go basically get things ready for Apollo to be submitted to the DAO, and then we're going to open up. So I have a 2-minute window. I've got to execute the contract start, etc., whatever it is, and then I have to basically get things ready to announce it to the DAO, and then 1 hour from now, it will be released to the general public. So once again, thank you guys for making it to the AMA. We're going to have this as a weekly thing. So I know there's a lot of unanswered questions, a lot of queries, a lot of things that people want to know about. Feel free to put it in the chat, or maybe in the next AMA, which is very, very soon, in the next 5 to 7 days. Thank you, everybody. And, you know, let's build, let's succeed, and let's evolve together within Project Daylight.
Thanks, Ted. Look forward to the contract, and this is going to be a successful launch, so congrats.
Yeah, this is awesome. Thanks, everybody.
You know, you guys feel free to be in here. Feel free to talk to some of the influencers. You know, have a good time. But I've got to hop off. Thank you, everyone who made it. Much appreciated from Team Daylight.
All right, so Ted has spoken about awesome stuff. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you have any questions, concerns, go into the Daylight Discord. I have the link in the comments. You can scroll through the comments, I think, and find it. But I also will leave the link in the description of the video. Thank you for watching. Greek loves all of you. And remember to never fear, because the Greek is here. Never fear, because the Greek